Welcome, everyone, to the March meeting of the HOF Advisory Board. We are catapulting through the year despite challenges that I think we're all facing. We're going to start today's meeting with the roll call. Oh,
First,
and ASL interpretation.
yep. First, we have ASL interpretation available. To view the ASL interpretation, please pin Chad B and Daniel C to your screen to follow along.
So I apologize, I'm looking to the side at different times. I have two different screens going. So today is a very exciting day. We have new members with us. I'm going to start with Lena Andrews, Darius Wallace.
Here.
Darius, would you like to just introduce yourself quickly?
Thank you so much. My name is Darius Wallace. I'm the Strategic Projects Administrator in the Mayor's Office. Really looking forward to being a part of the HOF and really helping to move the mission and vision forward for affordable city of Pittsburgh.
Thank you so much. Our new member, Terrell, I do not believe is with us this afternoon. Tanika Harris.
Present.
Karen Garrett.
Present.
Ellie Fisher.
Present.
Councilwoman Gross. Jerome Jackson.
Present.
Deidre Washington. And welcome to Rochelle Preston. Rochelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I can't see none of you guys, but my name is Rochelle Preston. I'm the president of Northview Heights Tenant Council in the High Rise. I'm glad to be aboard.
We're excited to have you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alan Cisco. James Reed. Adrienne Wanaha present. Now we can move into public comment. Oh, sorry, I'm off today. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from last meeting? Do we have any additions, corrections, or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Was that you, Karen?
Yes, Adrian.
Karen has moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
I think that was Jerome.
Yes.
Thank you, Jerome. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Minutes carry as written. Now it's time for public comment.
All right. We had one person register for public comment, but I do not see her either in online or in person.
Well, we can definitely circle back if she joins us later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, Eric, Lena joined. I was stuck in the waiting room.
Oh, well, sorry about that. Glad you could join us.
Okay, thanks.
I think we can just go straight into public comments because I think they are quite brief.
Admin updates?
Yes, admin update.
Okay. So we already introduced our new HOF Advisory Board members. Welcome. We're so happy to have you all here with us. Thank you. Thank you for dedicating your time to this important effort. The other admin update is our Homeowner Assistance Program, or HAP program, is a program that provides $35,000 of financial assistance to existing homeowners across the city of Pittsburgh to help them fix up their homes. The application for this program is currently open. It will be open until March 14th. Action Housing is our partner with the program, and we're running the application through them. The link to the application is on the screen. And if you just go to Action Housing or the URA's website, you will be able to find the application information. Some updates on where we are since the application opened on February 14th. As of today, March 4th at 8 a.m., we've received 615 total applications. The five most common zip codes are 15210, 15212, 15206, 15204, and 15219. 246 of those applications have at least one senior in the home, and 157 of the applications so far have at least one child in the home. So great updates from Action Housing that they've been able to provide on where we are so far. I think we've probably at least met the amount of applications that we received last year for the program. So we do expect to have more applications, probably the most applications for the round that we've ever had. So any questions about that update?
Can you repeat the zip codes again, please?
Sure. 15210, 15212, 15206, 15204, and 15219 are the five most common zip codes for the application as of this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you to the URA and Action Housing for the update. We're going to move into discussion about the for sale development program. We have two applications.
Right. So our first project is the Hilltop Alliance Rehab for Resale project, which will be presented by Jared from our team. Yes, just sit right there.
Hello, I'm Jared Clayton. I'm a residential lending analyst here at the URA. Today, we're seeking authorization to enter into a for-sale development program grant agreement in an amount not to exceed $255,735 sourced from the Housing Opportunity Fund with Hilltop Alliance or related entity for the rehabilitation of 4 scattered sites units located in Allentown and Knoxville neighborhoods, Ward 18 and 30 respectively, in the city of Pittsburgh. The rehabilitation of these 4 affordable single-family homes will be at or below 80% of the ANI in perpetuity for the Hilltop community. It's going to consist of 1 2-bedroom home and 3 3-bedroom homes. These homes are currently vacant and owned by the Hilltop Alliance, with 1 acquired from the land bank in February of 2025. We're requesting a total URA RGP loan or FSCP loan of $255,735, consisting of HOF funding from 2022 of $69,661, with HOF 2023 funding of $186,074. Apologies for the typo on the slide. The second HOF funding amount should be HOF 2023. With the one above it as 22. The other financing for this project will be the FHLB grant for $600,000, as well as the West Banco construction loan that's currently being pursued. And there's a PNC bank line of credit that is already existing so that they're able to complete the cost of $1,482,135. Construction is planned to begin April 2025 and be completed in October of 2025. One item of note is one of the sites is located at 11 East Amenden Avenue. This can be a bit tricky when you're typing it into different map applications, whether or not this would be a street without the east listed or different variations. The county website has it currently listed as we have it displayed, but if you're navigating via maps application or looking the address up, it might show you a different address. So something to be of noted. But we also have the parcel ID listed, which is 14G290. We also have Mohawk here, who's the Director of Construction and Redevelopment for the Hilltop Alliance. If there's any questions that needed to be addressed.
Are there questions, comments, follow-up items for clarity from the board?
I have a question. Do you have people in the pipeline for these homes, or how do you go about ensuring that individuals, maybe those who are already in the community, are able to acquire these homes? What's the process?
I know that Hilltop Alliance has been working with different community groups, but as for the specifics beyond the affirmative marketing plan that they have in place, I would have to have Mohawk speak to that.
Okay.
And I see him online as well.
Yeah, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. We actually are working, so these 4 houses will be City of Bridges Land Trust houses. And the Land Trust maintains a pipeline of interested and the potential home buyers. We also have an in-house team where we are working with the pipeline as we go. And we also will be working with Catapult. They also maintain a similar pipeline of the interested home buyers. So between these 3 sources, we are hopeful to find the home buyers.
Thank you, Mohawk. Other items from the board?
A clarifying question. Are you working with Catapult for financial education for the home buyers?
Yes, we will be. Yeah, we will be working on the other resources with Catapult as well.
Any additional items or a motion related to the project as presented?
Ellie Fisher, I'll make a motion to approve the project as presented. Oh, actually, I will make a, shall I read this?
Yes, please.
Okay.
If you can, I can read it.
Authorization, I move to authorize to enter into a for sale development program grant agreement in an amount not to exceed $255,735 sourced from the Housing Opportunity Fund with Hilltop Alliance or a related entity for the rehabilitation of 4 scattered site units located in the Allentown and Knoxville neighborhoods, Ward 18 and 30, City of Pittsburgh.
Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Is that Karen?
Yes.
Thanks, Karen. Who needs to abstain from the vote we are about to take?
Tanika.
Tanika has an abstention on record. Any other members? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, everyone, and thank you to Hilltop Alliance.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have another exciting project to review.
We sure do. Next up is the Gearing and Delmont Rehab FSDP program, which will be presented by Nicholas Person, also from our residential lending unit.
Thanks, Eric. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicholas Person. I'm a lending analyst in the residential lending department, and I'm here in front of this board today requesting authorization to enter into a for sale development program loan agreement with Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation or related entity in an amount not to exceed $81,480 for the rehabilitation of 844 Gearing Avenue and 814 Delmont Avenue in the Belt Super neighborhood, Ward 18 of the City of Pittsburgh. The nonprofit developer PHDC has come to the URA with a plan to rehabilitate 2 blighted single-family properties in Belt Super. These are 844 Gearing Avenue and 814 Delmont Avenue. They are 1 block from each other and are located right next to the neighborhood's McKinley Park. In the last few years, PHDC has rehabilitated several single-family homes near the park in a broader effort to revitalize the area. This proposed development would be a continuation of that effort. The total development cost for this project is $736,631. To cover these costs, PHDC has allocated funds from an equity equivalent investment provided by Dollar Bank, as well as an allocation of ARPA funds that were received through a subrecipient agreement with the URA. To cover their financial gap, PHDC has submitted an FSDP application requesting an $81,480 construction loan. This would be a 0% interest loan with a term of 18 months. Regarding repayment, the borrower shall pay all principal back in one installment within 10 business days of the sale of the final unit or 18 months from the date of the financial closing. Once the houses have been completed, PHDC will locate potential low-income households interested in purchasing these homes. 844 Gearing will have approximately 1,250 square feet of living space and will be sold for $225,000. 814 Delmont will have approximately 1,260 square feet and will be sold for $220,000. To make these for sale houses more affordable to households earning less than 80% AMI, PHDC will help these households apply for second deferred mortgage through either the URA's HRPD or OWN PGH program. And that is all. Thank you all very much for listening. I would also like to take this moment to introduce David Howe, the Financial Operations Manager of PHDC, who's with us today to help in answering any questions that the board may have about this item.
Thank you, Nicholas. Does the board have discussion that they would like to entertain at this time related to the project?
This is Ellie Fisher. I have a couple of questions. One, I was wondering, one, how it works with this being a loan and where do we see the money recycle back into? And then two, we just approved a FSDP grant with a 99-year restriction, but this one just has a 20-year restriction. So can somebody address the differences in these restrictions, please?
Yeah, I can do that. So to answer the second question, per the guidelines of FSDP, if it is a loan and not a grant, the minimum affordability term is 15 years, whereas when it is a grant, the minimum affordability period is 99 years. It is at the discretion for the URA staff to decide what that appropriate affordability term should be. We've decided on 20 years. With regard to the first question, Kiana, do you want to take that one?
The repayment of the loan will come back to HOF repay so that we can reuse the funds for other programs.
Do we see that in our financial reports, or does that become kind of
We typically only give you the report for the annual allocation, but we can start to add the HOF repay. We don't use it much, but we do have it.
That'd be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any additional questions or clarifications from members of the board?
And these will not be community land trust houses, right? Since it has a shorter affordability period.
No, they will not be community land trust houses. However, although we are only adding a 20-year affordability period on the construction side, when the buyer of when the homes are complete and they're purchased, there will also potentially either be a deed restriction through OWN PGH for 30 years or a second deferred mortgage put on the property, whichever. So the affordability period could be longer, more than likely will be longer than the 20 years for the construction funds.
I do have a question. I'm sorry if I don't see it. For this particular project, are we working with Belsuber Consensus Group on this? Have they been a part of this with PHDC?
Yeah. Hey, Tanika. Yeah, we are working with Jennifer Cashwade and the Belsuber Consensus Group on this one.
Thank you.
Additional questions, clarifications, or comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion related to the project? And Eric, can you go back?
Absolutely.
I can attempt.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tanika.
All right. I make a motion to enter into a for-sale development program loan agreement with Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation, also known as PHDC, or a related entity, in an amount not to exceed $81,480 for the rehabilitation of 544 Gearing Avenue and 814 Delmont Avenue in the Belsuber neighborhood, Ward 18 of the city of Pittsburgh.
We have a second on the motion?
The second, Ellie Fisher.
Thank you, Ellie. Do we have abstentions on this vote?
Yes, this is Jerome. I have to abstain because I'm the PHDC chair.
Thank you, Jerome.
Mhm.
All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 Hey,
All those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you to PHDC. And we have noted Jerome's conflict. To that point, actually, Kiana was nice enough to pull forward a conflict of interest form that we have used in the past, that we will be recirculating a version of that form again. So we really appreciate everyone coming forward with their conflicts in the meetings. So we do have that public note related to those conflicts, and we will get those forms out to folks soon. All right, we're going to be moving on to our next agenda item, which is our demonstration dollars.
Yep. So moving on to the demonstration dollars, we've been hard at work creating both the fully fleshed out guidelines and sort of revamping the application. So we're going to go through those one at a time, starting with the guidelines. So obviously I'm not going to read all of the guidelines to you, but there are some important points we should hit that might look a little different from some of the planning processes that we had at the beginning. So first of all, the program objective, I think it's important that we keep this in mind. I know a lot of our conversations around this has been about the objective. So I'm just going to read off this little section here. The main objective of the demonstration program, Demo Dollars, a program of the Housing Opportunity Fund, HOF, is to provide financial assistance to innovative housing pilot concepts or programs and urgent/emergency housing needs. Funding administered through this program will be used to maximize housing stability and increase the affordable housing supply in the city of Pittsburgh by funding imaginative and new housing solutions that cannot be funded by existing Urban Redevelopment Authority of Pittsburgh URA programs, and that respond to housing emergencies quickly, ensuring that those in need receive timely support. Demo dollars can also be used as emergency funding for existing URA/HOF programs once a program allocation is depleted. The program will be available to not-for-profit agencies and developers, as well as for-profit developers with a nonprofit partner. These funds will be deployed in one of the two following uses: innovative housing pilot concepts and urgent/emergency housing needs and solutions. For both of these, the URA will open application rounds for these two purposes at various times throughout the year. The URA will enter into contracts with the selected applicants and reimburse them for costs incurred on a per-project basis. Applicants will need to apply and be awarded a contract for specific geographic areas, which may be neighborhood-based or as large as the whole city of Pittsburgh. So I know.
Can I add a quick note for those in the room who have the printed out version of the guidelines? There was a sentence in there that's not in this printed version, you may have noticed, and that's, we did add a sentence to say the program can be used to fund existing HOF programs when their funds have been depleted. So you may have seen that or heard that, but didn't see it on the paper. I just wanted to let you know we added that.
Thank you for that addition. So yeah, I know, actually I might want to, I think we should open this up for comment right now. I know that the program objective was something that we talked about a lot. I see Tanika over there nodding. So yeah, I would love to hear some feedback.
I love where we landed. I love the program objective. It's very clear. I have a few editorial suggestions for later, and I can send those over because this is a 13-page document. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. I've never had that issue before. Folks couldn't hear me. Yeah, since it's a 13-page document for this, for the sake of everyone here, I would like to send over some of my notes, just a few, I think just some extra words and just rephrasing some things. That's all, just to make it more palatable for individuals in the community who would be receiving these funds. So, but I love the objective. It's very, very clear to me. I'm also biased because I was a part of the working group. But I also, I appreciate the entire team's effort and the time that you put into this, including the job form and the whole application process. It's very thoughtful. So I definitely appreciate that as a practitioner.
I appreciate that, Tanika.
And I think for all of us, the wordsmithing piece is, to the point that you just made, not exactly what we're hoping to do in this particular forum. We're focused much more on the larger concepts and bringing those to an agreement. I think that there will always be typos and commas and run-on sentences that we may want to massage a bit. And I'm sure that Eric is open to getting those from members of the board.
Absolutely. Any other particular sections that we should be shouting out right now?
I think other sections that we feel are important are we just want to make sure you all understand what this is written as grants. It's not loans, just grants. It is written so that individuals cannot apply. This is more so for nonprofits that are or for-profits that have a nonprofit partner that are kind of meeting a larger housing need, whether it's emergency, innovative, or service need in the community. And then we wrote the JOT form application to kind of mirror what those three categories are. And so when you click through the JOT form, you can select one of the three categories: emergency, innovative, or housing services or pilot program. You'll get different boxes that will open up to kind of correspond to whichever category you select, the applicant would select. So I think that's kind of the most important piece. And then, of course, with most of the HOF programs, this is targeted to 80% AMI or below. We only have one program that goes beyond 80% AMI, and that's our down payment and closing cost assistance program.
Thank you for that, Chief Wassler. Yeah, I think that really does illustrate some of the broad strokes of the work that we've been doing over the past month with the demonstration program. So are we doing a voting?
Yeah, I guess we'd love to open it up and hear any other questions or comments about the guidelines as proposed or the application.
This is Ellie Fisher. I think this looks really great. I did notice looking up at the screen, what's the difference between innovative and pilot? That's two different options. I thought we had two.
Innovative and pilot would be the same.
Okay, I thought so.
It may just be
And
changing
I think
language.
Yeah, like Tanika was saying, there is still a little bit of wordsmithing that needs to go on here.
Oh, okay. So that'll just be up there. What we see now on the screen will just be two options.
No, it will still be three options, but
one is for a construction, a development type of project. So the second one is an innovative real estate development.
I see.
The third one is for like an innovative or pilot program service program. That's how we have it written now.
Right.
But still
exactly.
only two buckets. There's a innovative bucket and a emergency bucket.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yes, some much needed wordsmithing on that, but
That helps.
And for clarity, because I had been asked this question myself, adding programs that already receive HOF funding. So what we did in the application was we had originally said programs that could be funded through the traditional HOF buckets would not be applying for this, innovation and emergent need program. However, there may be things that fall into innovation or emergent need for programs that are already utilizing HOF funding. So hence there's a little bit of a tension there that we will want to, as a group, be very careful when we're considering that what we're saying is not okay, everybody who gets a HOF award, apply for demo and then we'll just give you extra dollars. That's not the intent, but there may be places where folks who currently have more traditional HOF funding will be coming in for this round for something that connects back to the purpose of these dollars.
Whoever's controlling the screen, can you click on emergency funding, please? I just think it's important to note that each of those,
It'll take you to
once
the
you click
screen.
on it, it then takes you to very specific questions related to whatever you've chosen. So I think that's really important to highlight because I know we've talked about that at nauseum. So it's really catered to. So we need to click around in it, play around with it, and I did have an opportunity to do that over the weekend, so I appreciate that
Yeah,
aspect.
you can absolutely do sort of test runs of this and go down all the different routes. You'll find the beginning and end are the same no matter which type of program you're interested in. But then, as Danica was saying, the middle is catered to change depending on whichever of you choose on this specific question. That's how the logic works within the job form.
So if folks feel comfortable, I know we were all asked to review prior to the meeting. If there aren't more specific questions just related to the content of the application and the objectives that we are trying to achieve and the, creation of sort of 2 tracks for folks to apply, I'd love us to move into the rollout. If there's any, any specific larger concerns related to content before we move to rollout, please put those forward now. Hearing none, let's discuss rollout. So as we are all used to in this iteration of the Housing Opportunity Fund Board, we have certain applications that are open and rolling. We've had other applications over time that have been time limited. And we, definitely see that with the Housing Assistance Program, as we talked about earlier. There's an opening for a month. We already have hundreds of applications, more people than we could serve. So that's not something that's, an open, available, rolling application process. For us, we have 2 different prongs here. We have the innovation and we have the emergent need piece. We have limited dollars for both. It'll be important for us, at this time to really talk through when and how the application is open, and then how we are looking at those applications. In the Housing Opportunity Fund Board, we've had different opportunities and different ways that we've reviewed projects. Today, we actually reviewed 2 projects. Those have gone through the URA process where the URA has collected all of the applications. They've done a robust review based on certain criteria. They have come back to us with an overview of the project. We've had a presentation, discussion, and a vote. There's also been times here in the board where we have had small groups that were reviewing applications and the full group reviewing applications. And those are some of the things we want to talk about. It can be, a more unilateral URA process. It can be a full board process. It could be a subgroup of the board process. So all of those items are on the agenda under rollout. What are folks' thoughts so far, in our conversations or ways that you've envisioned the program?
Well, for the urgent emergency, what I believe we were all discussing this in a manner that we can't, it's an emergency, right? So that should be an open-ended process. So there should be no time no time period start and an end. So that one would be different. The other one, I think, on the other hand, could very well. And I think Alan and Ellie, weren't you all, we were talking about this. I'm going back to the end of last year now. I know. I think we talked about this for the innovative projects, having a start and end, an application period for those in particular. But I think for emergency and urgent, that just needs to be an open enrollment process.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's what you said earlier. Yeah. You're consistent. Ellie agrees with me.
Well, some days I am, only some days. I think that if the URA is willing to do the review and the intake, I would certainly appreciate that. I think what you guys present is fantastic, and I know from the other side of the table that you really work with the applicants and make sure everything's all set up and in line, and then present it really succinctly. So if there's capacity for that.
What does that look like? Yeah.
Just a caveat to that. So the reality is, so say we opened the innovative round, let's say we said that was third quarter of 2025. RFPs come in. There's more RFPs than dollars that we're going to give out. Do folks feel comfortable with the URA bringing the strongest applications forward, or would folks like to see all applications?
My take on that. Hi, everybody. I was a few minutes late. Sorry.
Alan?
Hi. My take on that is I think we trust the URA to do a good deal of filtering and consideration on everything else. I think my take would be the same for this. I think it would get very, very messy in our sort of monthly meetings to try to make those sort of determinations completely live and in color on our meetings. So I think I would like the URA to do some recommendation. My caveat to that is it would be cool to have a quick part of our monthly report that that has a list of the other applications we got. I think that would be neat, so that we have that data point we can track, and we can maybe ask questions about the prioritization. But I honestly think, depending on, and then if there's a really tough one and the URA staff is we don't know to pick A or B, and they want to bring it to us and we kick it around as a big group, that feels cool too. But that would just be at their discretion, I think. That's my take on it.
I agree, Alan. I do think it'll be great to get a full list. We would hate for people to have to wait for a monthly meeting to be able for us to, it essentially would just prolong a system that's already long as it is. But specifically related to the urgent and emergency, I think there's another way for us to handle. I don't know if it makes sense and if it's fair for individuals to have to wait. So once the URA goes through them, then they would have to wait until the next HOF board meeting to get a final approval. So I do think we should think through something as it relates to urgent and emergency, because it wouldn't be urgent or emergent. It wouldn't be an emergency. I mean, that's an emergency is an emergency. So how do we? So I think what Alan said, let me start from the top. So I think what Alan said would work for the innovative projects, but we should come up with a slightly different process for urgent and emergency. But then I would kick it back to the URA though.
Challenge. It takes a while to go through the URA process anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, these dollars just aren't going to come out in 2 weeks or whatever number, right?
It could for emergency.
Well, so let's take a minute and just let's separate the buckets. So let's talk about the innovation piece. So what I think I heard was that we actually want to open up a round, a more formalized round that's time limited for those particular projects. The URA would receive them, review them, bring the strongest to the table for a vote amongst the Homeless Advisory Board members, and also provide to us, a brief thumbnail overview of all the applications, so that we could have that, to inform our decisions and to also be thinking about how these funds roll out in the future. In that type of scenario with a formalized time-specific round, it feels like our general way that we've been doing things of having the URA come and present the projects, and then at a regularly scheduled board meeting, we carve out time for those votes. It feels like the innovative projects lend relatively well to our current process. Do folks agree with that? Not agree with that? Agree somewhere in the middle?
Agreed.
No, I agree with that.
I agree
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
Well, that was easy.
That was only the first one.
That was only the first one. And I'm not going to stop yet, because with these innovative projects, we have applications that are already out on the street for projects. So we have, preservation products, we have homeowner assistance products, we have rental gap. Those are already scoring matrix, protocols that we've already utilized. So in order for the URA to come back to us with something robust, it feels that, we do need something related to these innovative projects that is the review tool. And my suggestion would be to the URA staff and to our board members to circulate those standards for us to start taking a look at, so that we could, finalize what our thinking is around the evaluation criteria. Does that seem reasonable for the innovative programming?
I think so.
So just so that I'm clear, Adrian, what you're saying is that you allow the URA to go create or using some of the processes that they already have to create the process for this
No.
particular program. Is that what I'm
No,
hearing?
not to
No.
create the
Okay.
process, but to share with us as the board the current evaluation tools that are being used for existing projects.
Okay.
Then that way we as a board can review those, and we can come back with thinking about how those would need to stay the same or change for these innovative project reviews.
Okay, I got you.
Yes.
I got you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And it seems like in terms of criteria that we're looking for to help us rank applications, that's really in the documents that the committee put together. And we have that, like,
Yeah, we have,
what,
we have
yeah.
it.
So we just want to make sure that there's something that's clear related to how the projects are evaluated. Because we want that transparency, and we want to be able to really do that equitably across projects. And there have been times in our history where members have really wanted to evaluate projects on criteria that are outside of what was more formally established. And we want to have a fair and transparent process for everyone.
Yeah, agreed. And
I agree.
and the criteria should be a part of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Deidre.
Oh, no, I was just saying I agree, and it's across the board, so it won't look like it's unfair.
And it should align with the application.
Exactly.
We're asking for specific information. And we should be, we have good work that's been done by the URA over the last 5 years, 6 years. So not wanting to throw out good work that's already done, but, us taking a revisit and making sure everyone's comfortable, and then that will be, the final criteria used.
And that could be a part of the marketing. So when it's out there, so individuals should be able to see that this is the criteria that it'll be ranked. And so if you make the process should be transparent from the beginning to the end, right?
Absolutely.
And so it will only help and not hinder the work that the URA and the city are doing. So I think that would be helpful to be able to have the criteria ahead of time before individuals are applying for it. They can see what the criteria, they can see the ranking, whatever we call it, right? So whatever that looks like, it'll just, it'll add more weight to a system that we know is partially broken, but we're working to ensure that it's more equitable.
Just to chime in on behalf of the URA, I think that's fine. We can definitely create a criteria or scoring document, and bring that back before the HOF Advisory Board for your review and approval before we open the innovation round. Good.
So it feels like we have some consensus related to innovation. I think to everyone's concerns, the emergent requests, we want to make sure that those are processed in the most timely fashion that we can. It may not be the best strategy to have the 4-week gap in between HOF board meetings for evaluation, which is one of the reasons why I had brought up the small group. We had been attempting in the rental gap program to put together some opportunities for a more expedited review of projects. With emergent need, I don't think that what we say is we just throw caution to the wind and we process things every day. I don't know that that's a good strategy either, but making sure that we have something that's responsive to something that we would like to have a more expedited turnaround in. I'm looking forward to everyone's thoughts.
Question about what our obligations are to the public for public meetings and decision making about this. If we do it if a subcommittee is able to do it, is that going to be a public meeting with that sort of process?
I believe if we reviewed them in a subcommittee, we would need to bring them back to the advisory board at the next advisory board meeting to ratify the vote. And another option could be URA staff could call for an email vote in between meetings. That is an option as well. But we would still bring that back at the next committee to publicly ratify that vote as well.
As long as it's daylighted at the next meeting.
Yes.
Great.
And maybe I'm, overthinking how timely is.
So did I hear that essentially either whether it's an email vote of the whole crew or a subcommittee vote, like both things sort of create the same pathway for the full board to be made aware of the project? Is there any difference in how quickly that money could get on the street once it is approved by either the email vote or the subcommittee? Like, is there any difference there? Or does it have to wait for the daylighting here, like Ellie said?
It could be faster if we, have a subcommittee or an email vote. There is a check request process at the URA that takes approximately a week or two once we receive the invoices. So there is just administrative process built into this. But I do think an emailed vote could be faster in an emergent situation. Like if we open the application next week and got applications that day, we would be vetting them and getting back to you within a week versus 3 or 4 weeks. So
yeah, I think that, Adrian, that's kind of what you were after, right? Like how do we keep it swift if we're talking about literally emergencies?
Yes. And how do we really, approach this from, good vetting? We absolutely trust our URA partners and their expertise. But also we have the responsibility to be part of a robust conversation related to these. So if we were waiting, per se, for a URA presentation to the following month, as the first conversation we're having about a project, it feels like that could push us back, a significant amount. We're talking about weeks, not months. So again, the group, what is our comfort level of, is a 4-week turnaround time on an application appropriate? Is that not appropriate? If we are going to vet, is that, we have applications on the table, there's a subcommittee that's just ready to sit and meet with the URA, walk through any questions or concerns. Or are we able to very, very quickly read through diligently packets that we get from the URA to then have an email vote? And again, I'm looking for folks thinking on, is a timeline of 4 weeks waiting to get a vote too much on this emergent, urgent need conversation?
Yeah, that's actually unacceptable. So that shouldn't even be an option for a 4-week turnaround for an emergency. And so
Well, it
thinking
would
of,
be 4 weeks and then the URA's process. So that's 6 weeks.
yeah, that's
that's a
not
lot
gonna
for an
work.
emergency.
That won't work at all. Yeah, so because if you think about it, many of the, I'm saying our, like I still work here, sorry, many of the projects that the URA is working on are serious projects. There is a serious need. So anyone could classify them as like, this is an emergency, we really need to get this done, right? And so then you add the criteria that we put in place for what calls for an emergency need. And so it could be a matter of safety for individuals, like all of those things, right? And so there's just something that we need to do. And if there's a way to do it differently, and a way that to do it in a manner that has not been done before, like that's okay too. But when it comes down to urgent and emergency, we have to, I think that the HOF board is the place to start it. There's a way to do it. We're not going to get it right the first or second time. We're just not. It's not going to be perfect. We're not. We're going to have to take the L, be honest about it. We're trying. This is our intent is to do something, but we have to agitate the system that we're working against pretty much, right? And so it is absolutely unacceptable for an emergency situation to have to wait 6 weeks. And I'm not saying that that's what the URA is saying, but to answer your question, like that is vehemently unacceptable, right? And so this is something that we probably need to work with internally to figure out if there are certain things that the HOF board members can do to provide extra support to the URA team to ensure that that's not an option. Again, I'm not saying that they're saying that that's an option, but is there anything that we can do to help to support, even if it comes down to putting a report together? So the subcommittee will be the ones putting a report together, essentially with what the URA has just presented with us today, these two projects. Like even going, just going a little going a little further for the urgent and emergency needs request.
That's actually what we had been doing. Each member of the HOF was required to do a funding matrix on a project. So we have, again, I'm just going to go back to, we have the option to, what I'm hearing from everyone is waiting for a full board meeting isn't acceptable. So we sort of have with 2 options there. We can have, a small group meet on an off schedule. We can have an email review. We need 5 board members. That's our quorum. We need 5 board members to, vote in order for us to move something forward. Again, I kind of started the conversation with, does everybody want to get all the applications to take a look at them? We can take on much more of the diligence of reviewing the applications. But I think the 2 strategies that we have outside of just waiting for the regular HOF cycle, which is the way that we review most other applications, is to have, a small group, a work group that does those reviews, whether that's they get every application and review all of the applications and make recommendations, or The small group meets with the URA who's made their recommendations and makes determinations from there. Or the URA puts out an email to all of us, and it's very time restricted, where, we need a motion, we need a second. That can be sort of taken care of in the, finalize that ratification in a follow-up meeting. But we will need folks to step forward and say, yes, I'm in agreement, this is my vote, so that can turn around quickly. So that would really be the determination time. The URA could start processing accordingly, and then we would, shine the sunshine on the decision at a follow-up full board meeting for the ratification. So I'm not sure what preferences there are. What do people feel strongly about?
I think to me, it still seems like it's going to be a 4-week process, and maybe Kiana and Eric, you can give me some clarification on this. But even if we still do the subcommittee vote or the email vote, that's enough to start the process, but we'll automatically have to wait until the next HOF meeting in order to ratify it for y'all to actually send payment out.
I think we could work a 3-week process where we receive an application, take up to a week to review it. I do not think it will take that long. And then at the end of our review, email the advisory board or go through whatever the process is we determined today. And then again, our check request cycle is about a week. And so yeah, I do think it'll be like a 3-ish week process.
Okay. So it won't, the broader HOF board meeting, us ratifying that doesn't slow any of that process down.
I don't think so. I think we can be, as long as we have a quorum vote on the email, I think that we could start working towards getting the payment processed and getting things ready. So, if it'll be ready to go once we're finalized.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That was helpful to even hear as you were talking through it, Chief Lossler. So what I would say is maybe that should be something added to the application. It should be in multiple places, right? So where it says urgent and emergency, put in parentheses, at least a 3-week turnaround. So people can, let's anticipate, so they can know what to look for. Do you know what I mean? So
yes.
And that should be in the guidelines, that should be, whatever your team comes up with, whatever it is, that should be stated. And we should be leading with that as well.
Okay.
Even when we're marketing it, we need to lead with it.
Makes sense.
I agree.
Any strong opinions about the protocol for us to spring into action and do these reviews votes? And obviously meetings of a subcommittee can be virtual as well.
I think for me, I know I'm the last person to this conversation, but I think it might be easier to have a subcommittee. I'm not sure if there's like a 4, 5, 6 folks who are most dedicated, passionate about this subject area, but I think a subcommittee dedicated to this will be the most helpful to this new process until we feel like we're in a great place to really have a system going that we all feel comfortable with. But my preference is for the subcommittee. And also more than happy to be a part of that subcommittee.
You were about to be voluntold.
I felt it. I felt it on my shoulder. I felt it on my shoulder.
I second.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of groundswell for, having a working group, subcommittee. Anyone feeling that that's a bad approach?
I just give a little caution that I think that adds an extra, like I like having a dialogue and having a meeting, but it adds an extra step of now you need to schedule a meeting.
We don't.
Versus just,
Oh,
For
sorry,
the
Ellie.
subcommittee? For the subcommittee?
You know,
I'm sorry, Ellie.
Oh, that was for somebody else.
I'm sorry, Ellie.
No problem. I was saying, and if it's, you guys don't agree, then that's welcome. But, you know, the staff is gonna review it. They're gonna schedule that subcommittee meeting, right? And then it'll be the conversation there, as opposed to the email process. You shoot out the email and say, you've got 3 days to respond, and then you have your answer.
would that be the subcommittee though? I think that's my question.
Email,
So
it
if it's
should go to
emailed to the
everybody.
subcommittee, okay.
If it's email, it should just go
Okay.
to everybody, and you need at least a quorum to respond.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, no issues with that. I was just more so thinking that if you have, sorry, I was just thinking if you had more people assigned to it, it would just move it a little bit faster, as opposed to just people who aren't on standby waiting for it. Yeah. Because we all get 1,000 emails a day. I do it as well. If I see a certain email coming, I'm like, I'm gonna wait till I get back to this. But definitely, like, if we know people who are like, this is your role, this is your responsibility. If you see that email come through, you know to jump on it. So instead of just having, I know it's like to coordinate boards and commissions and meetings, and me, Eric talked about that as well. So just if you have people assigned to it, is more responsibility there. That's all.
All right, well, we can have a subcommittee assigned to voting.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's important to note would we need a quorum on the subcommittee?
Well, I was about to just make that commentary. We have, for us at this moment in time, a quorum of the group is 5. If you don't have a quorum, you sort of lose what was the point of the gathering. I think the point of having a small group review is the dialogue, is the review of what people submitted, is the prioritizing. In an email, we can have dialogue, but you lose a little bit of that dialoguing that's happening when you're just doing an email approach. And personally, I would rather, this is just me. I am not a fan of emails of dozens of people. I think that it's easy for those to go missing, just because of volumes, especially if you're trying to dialogue in an email. But again, I think that what we're trying to achieve is making sure that there has been the Housing Opportunity Fund Board, via a quorum participating, no less, feels that this is a good utilization of funding. And that can happen in different ways.
Adrian, can you, this is the last time I'm going to talk today. Can you just do what you do so well? Can you just break down what this process would look like? So an individual applies for an emergency funding. Well, an organization applies for emergency funding. The application goes to the URA. It's submitted.
Yes. I mean, the URA has been the collector of applications.
So I'm just trying to like pull together, and I don't do it as well as you do. Like, you are a master with that. Your language is perfect. So I'm going to stumble and fumble, but just bear with me. So the URA receives the application, the completed application, permitting it's completed, right? Because so then the URA, so if they receive an incompleted application, they're the ones that are going back and forth with the organization to get a completed application, correct? So all that's happening before it comes to whether it's a subcommittee or the full HOF board, right? So the URA.
So the URA, we had determined from the beginning that the URA receives all applications and does the preliminary review. If those applications were not complete, the URA was doing that follow-up before we, as the HOF, again, and this is sort of a time warp, and Lena will remember, we would get the full packets. We got people's applications and we had scoring sheets. And that was a way for us to come to whatever conversation it was, fully prepared, deeply immersed, all the boxes are checked, and what we're really making final decisions on is our understanding of gaps, need, and viability, impact.
Okay. So taking it from there, the URA then sends over, and this is where I'm leaning on you. So where are we right now? The URA then sends it over to a subcommittee.
Well, that's what we're trying to decide. Do we want to have our process right now is the URA weeds through the applications. They bring us the strongest applications. We in our HOF meeting do that vote as a full group. We have not been receiving full applications for anyone. We've been not been doing a scoring matrix of any sort. So we have the option of what we're doing right now, which is the URA brings forward complete and strong projects for our review and approvals or not approvals. In a newer, different model where the URA is not doing that summarizing and coming back to us in a regularly scheduled meeting, which sometimes might be right in line with when someone applied. I think we're talking about worst case scenarios of if it's 4 weeks before we can be together to do something that everyone's saying that's problematic. So we have the option of the URA bringing forward a packet of some sort to the group in an email with an overview of the project, and we just simply do a vote. Or in a modified process, we have a 48-hour comment period and then do a vote via email. Or we can have a subcommittee where the subcommittee is the ones that are receiving the URA applications in a timely fashion, getting together as quickly as they can in a virtual or in-person meeting to do the same thing, which is vote on this proposal. If the subcommittee is only 2 people, that doesn't really get us anywhere. So the subcommittee would really have to represent at least a quorum of members coming together and coming to an agreement on what projects are going to move forward. And in my thinking, doing something like a meeting gives us that opportunity for dialogue, which, as we saw today, is powerful. There were a lot of questions asked about projects, and those are important questions. Email is just a little more flat. And again, we could do a comment period in the email distribution. If people feel like that is a good and robust way to identify any issues, questions, or concerns about a project, then, if we're all committing to that, that could work as well. I think it's how much real-time engagement do we want with each other for these application reviews?
I'm chiming in on behalf of the URA. We have the capacity to take the applications, review them, provide the package to you all with our recommendations, or just provide a summary with recommendations in an email vote, or, to maybe hold committee meetings throughout the months and cancel them as needed if we don't have applications. So I just want to chime in and say, whichever process we do, we have the capacity to take that on. You just may have meetings on your calendar that'll get canceled if we don't have applications. But I think the best way for a subcommittee would be to hold time weekly over the once we open the round, just to make sure we're all kind of setting time aside and staff internally is prepared to be able to provide the information to you. So either way, URA can take on however much of this you would like us to.
Helpful. Thank you.
And realistically, this might be 3 projects. So I don't think we do know if the regular meeting time is superbly problematic for our applicants. You know, to Kiana's point, it's basically just holding time so that we're responding. And even if it's via email, we really need to dedicate to reviewing the projects closely, not just voting.
Mhm. Mhm. I like the idea of holding the time. And I also would like to just have a note in this whole thing that our preference is to review the projects at the regular board meetings wherever possible. But we understand that sometimes there's emergencies and we want to be responsive to that.
So we have a really big group today. What are folks thinking? Are you leaning in any sort of way?
I'll go. Yeah, my priorities are like for like whatever is time efficient for the review of the projects, right? That would be like my number one priority in this. If that means we have to hold time for sort of an extra meeting, that's cool. I'm flexible on like what strategy we have for that. Just, you know, as much as we can be efficient, we should be.
You know, we lost Karen, unfortunately. Deidre, do you have thoughts about the best mechanism for this?
No, I'm in
It's kind of,
agreement with it going through the URA and just making it as efficient as possible and as fair and transparent and as transparent.
Lena?
Um, yeah, I'm fine with really any of these. It seems like people are leaning towards the subcommittee thing with the regularly scheduled time. I think that's great. And yeah, to agree with Alan, efficiency and fairness combined are most important.
So if we synthesize this, if I synthesized it in the way that I'm hearing it, which might not be accurate to the way anybody else is hearing it, but if we said that our HOF meeting is the first week of the month, and that is every month, and then we held a time the third week in the month, where, you know, we understood that that was a time that there would be an expectation that we're coming back together if there are applications for review. Does that get us there? And if, you know, we do that and maybe it doesn't work well, we adjust quickly to another format?
I mean, that's kind of a start, I think. Um, I don't know how many applications we will get in, but I'm just thinking a 2 or 3 week. There may be a lot and there may not be. But my only concern is what happens after that third week meeting that we're preparing for our board meeting. If an emergency comes up after our meeting, then that swings somebody into more than possibly 4 to 6 weeks of help. But I'm all for subcommittee and those kind of and that as well. So.
Can we make it flexible so that in that situation, Jerome, we would bring it to the full board versus the subcommittee because that would be the next meeting?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a good idea. Yep.
I'm also going to say something well, you can interpret it how you want to interpret it. If we are giving a funding mechanism to an organization that can't wait 3 to 4 weeks for cash, I think that that's also, something that we should talk about more deeply. We want it to be, fast and available. And we want small organizations to be able to participate. These dollars are going to be, potentially, a $50,000 grant and above. We only have a certain amount of dollars at this moment in time. If it's an organization that has no financial capacity to wait for an additional week, is that something we're concerned about?
No, I would say 3 to 4 weeks is not, I mean, if you're trying to get stuff done, 3 or 4 weeks is not a bad time. I'm thinking after that, we start getting to 5 and 6 weeks, and 7 and 8 weeks is when it becomes, I believe, will become an issue. But 3 to 4 weeks of getting stuff done, and whatever the emergency is, it can hold for a couple of weeks, I'm sure.
Well,
So-
let me just push that for a second. And I think I can use an example. Receiving the funding is different than getting approval,
Right.
right? And so I think that that's the other piece. So many organizations may have a fronting source, but knowing that, because if an example, I use this example constantly, the East Hills fire. Let's just say Catapult wanted to step in to provide support. And so Catapult then applies for funding, emergency funding, to help with those individuals, right? It's an active situation. There's intergenerational, it's high poverty, many things are happening there, right? So a lot of things. And Catapult then applies to this emergency project funding, right, through HOF. And to hear everyone say, like, if you can't wait 3 weeks to get money, I think that that's a disservice to this program and even to Save for an Emergency. Now, what Catapult could do is reallocate existing funding because it's an emergency, so the organization didn't plan for it, right? So Catapult then provides funding to move in to get support. URA is credited for this also. The city of Pittsburgh is credited for this also, right? So looking at all of those things. And then the HOF board is able to say, hey, we're approving these funds, but we also know that internally it may take a week or two. But if Catapult knows that they're going to get this funding, they can begin to act. So I think there's a distinction there. So receiving approval that they're going to get the funding is one thing, and then actually receiving the funding later is different. So I know that, so for an emergency, if an organization can go ahead and front it, that's great. But if they're unable to front it, and maybe that's a question to put on the application, like in the event, like if the 3-week turnaround is not adequate for this particular need, do you have the ability to front it? I just don't think that organizations should be reprimanded if they are unable to wait to be able to provide funding for an emergency that was not budgeted.
And I definitely was not suggesting an organizational reprimand. My question was to what was proposed, what I had proposed, which was a review and approval every 2 weeks. So we would be doing it at the regular HOF meeting, and then we would schedule an additional meeting each month. So there would be a review and approval every 2 weeks. So certainly not an organizational reprimand.
It was to the other point. No, and so I do agree with that, Adrian, completely. But I just want to be clear while we're in this meeting to say that is that something for us to consider if an organization can't wait 3 or 4 weeks? I just want to be clear with that because I saw some people in agreement with that, and I'm not in agreement with that theology because I think that that's creating a them versus us, and that's not okay. That doesn't sit well with me. I just wanted to be clear about that. Some organizations just don't have the funds for an emergency, but it doesn't mean that they should not receive the funding because they can't wait 3 or 4 weeks.
Thank you. And again, I don't think I was suggesting that, but if that's
Okay.
the way that it was heard, I apologize. There is going to have to be a whole URA contracting process that, we will have to have infrastructure for, and, organizations will have to be able to respond to that infrastructure. So maybe those are additional questions that need to be in the application. Other thoughts, concerns, you thinking about the evaluation, how frequently we're doing that. So are we thinking doing a small group, all of the members that can join us, either reviewing these in the regular meeting or then scheduling the third week of each month?
I like the third week of each month. And then the default, like you said before, would be the regularly scheduled HOF board meeting. That makes sense.
Does that feel responsive enough?
We can, Adrian, my original suggestion was weeklies, to hold weekly meetings. I don't know if, you know, that's going to be 4 meetings a month for the group, but I think the non-advisory board meetings can be probably 30 minutes to review, unless we have many applications to review. But we're happy to do a weekly additional meeting as well until the funds run out.
Thoughts on
What do you
weekly?
think about a 1 week versus 2 weeks?
Yeah, I thought that I had heard that that was too much for folks, which was why I was trying to tool back. But
Okay, sorry.
folks want to hold 1 day a week. We've had a very hard time finding a good day of the week. So if we were going to hold, do we always hold for the Tuesday? You know, do we hold every Tuesday for this time? For a 30-minute conversation?
I know for me, at least, like I'm not going to be able to make 4 meetings a month. Like that's probably unlikely for me. As long as all we need is a quorum, I'll make as many as I can. But I think if we're going to meet weekly, that's just going to have to be, something that we navigate.
And it's weekly only if
Right. I get that.
applications come in. No, I was asking. So it's
Yeah.
not like we're just meeting and
No.
it's only for the emergency. Okay.
Yes, only for emergency.
Only for emergency. Okay.
But if we're going to meet, we're going to have to guarantee we have a quorum. So for each week, we will need people to RSVP, because if we don't have a quorum, then getting everybody into a call or a virtual meeting we're not going to be able to do the business that we need to do.
Good point. And would it flip to email?
Mika, what do you think about the 2-week waiting period? Do you think that that's enough for organizations to get notice? Like, I just kind of feel like, in terms of my perspective, having like every other week meeting would be so much easier. If it's every week, I'm gonna book on top of that thing, you know? But I want to, so it would be 2 weeks for somebody to hear a decision.
For a decision.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's more than reasonable.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. To hear a decision, absolutely. 'Cause then they can begin to plan. Yeah.
So what if we do the third week? That's my suggestion. And I would say the same time as this, but less of the time.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, so proposition on the table is that we would review applications at our traditional HOF funding meetings, board meetings. And then we would look at the third week of the month, the third Tuesday at 3 o'clock for a 30-minute meeting. Does that resonate with folks?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna say that that is our, original strategy that we can revisit as we actually have a rollout of the opportunity. We'll probably learn, a million lessons at minimum, which then we can use to tweak our strategy.
I have a proposal for the dollars. I
That's
think that it
actually
would
where I
be,
was gonna
you were
move,
gonna go there?
Ellie, is how much we have now and how much is going into each bucket.
Yes.
Is that where your head was going?
That's where my head was going too. I would like to suggest that the emergency funds are everything that we have in 2024 and before, and that the pilot program is everything in 2025. And that we start with that so that we have an idea of an amount that we have in each, for each bucket.
Fiona and Eric, can you remind us of our total and which year they're affiliated with?
There's one better.
It's like you were ready, Eric.
Yeah. We don't yet have we don't have the 2025 allocation yet, but that will be coming in the coming months. And we have all of the 2024 allocation. Do we have additional dollars?
So we only have 2024.
That is all. So right now we have 2024, that's the 350,000, and we will soon be receiving the 2025 $300,000.
So Ellie has suggested the immediate funding of demo dollars at 350,000 for emergent need. And then when the 2025 allocation becomes available to us, the 300,000 for innovation and pilot projects.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Then if we don't spend all that those pilot dollars, then they get put into the emergent need bucket at the end of the year.
So we have a proposition on the table. Other thoughts? Or does everybody just feel like that is absolute, Ellie just gave us exactly where we needed to go?
I feel like Ellie gave us exactly where we need to go.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at the tiles and see who I can see. Lena, Deidre, Jerome.
That's good. I like it.
I agree with what Ellie just put out.
Fantastic. So it sounds like what we're striving toward is we have some time to take a look at how projects are evaluated for the innovation component, which will have $300,000 dedicated to it once we get the allocation. In the emergent pool, we would be looking at having the application roll out once tweaks are, and wordsmithing and all of that great stuff gets to happen. That would go out immediately in the emergent needs category. There would be $350,000 dedicated to that from the 2024 dollars. We would meet at our regular first Tuesday of the month and review any applications. The URA will be making recommendations to us based on their evaluation of projects received. And then we will be holding time at 3 o'clock, the third Tuesday of each month, for 30 minutes for any application reviews that have come in. Does that feel like we've gotten to, a level of consensus that feels good, at least for the initial rollout?
Yes.
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 Kiana and Eric, I think we had spoken about, do we need to do like a specific motion and vote? And I'm not sure legal weighed back in on that.
I don't have that unfortunately, but I think we should do it just to vote it through. I do want to add that, these guidelines will also be taken to the URA board. Just since we're putting structure around the program here and creating these guidelines. So to officially adopt them, we also want to take them to the URA's board in March. So I think it would be worthwhile to vote the guidelines through understanding that there may be some small tweaks and changes that come from advisory board members before the meeting, the URA board meeting next week. So
And that's Thursday of next week, right, Kiana?
correct. So I think it makes sense to maybe do a vote on the guidelines, the process. Do we want to also take a moment to talk about when to open the emergency application? Once we have URA board approval, we could open it that day. So what is the thought from the advisory board about when do you want the URA to start to accept applications? We've been preparing our to create a web page for the program, create an email blast and social media blast. So all that's kind of drafted. We just need to know when you all want to open it.
I think we should open it right after the board meeting.
Agreed.
Maybe that Monday instead of opening on our Fridays. I think sometimes people lose things on a Friday.
Okay.
That's just my own personal. I think especially nonprofits get crazy on Mondays and Fridays.
So do we want to take a general vote on, sorry, we don't have an authorization written up to authorize guidelines, process, and an opening timeline?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lena.
Can I make that motion? I don't remember all the details at all. We do something every other week. It's going to open next Monday. We're using the old funds for the emergencies and the new ones for everything else. And that's my motion. No, my motion captures whatever's in the minutes that everyone agreed to on those different fronts.
I'll second that.
Anyone needing to abstain from this vote? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposition? Well, great. So we're going to start with the emergency funds. We're going to start that. I think it's St. Patrick's Day, open the round. URA will be reviewing the applications and bringing forward the strongest applications to the board for review at our next HOF meeting or at the third Tuesday if we have folks that can actually get their applications together in a very, very quick period of time. Those meetings, Eric, can you put those meetings out to us Tuesday at 3 for 30 minutes, third Tuesday at 3?
I sure can.
And then will the URA be able to cancel those for us if there are not applications?
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. And then in our next time together, we will take a look at some scoring guidelines for the innovative program. And we'll be hopefully in a position where we have dollars allocated to us that are usable either at that meeting or shortly thereafter to start soliciting innovation applications. Point of just clarity for the URA, when you put out the applications, are you going to black out the innovation programs or will it be a completely different application? Will you be posting half of an application? Because we won't have both open at the same time.
We have talked internally about whether we can do this if we don't have both of them open at the same time. And we would basically have to separate the applications out. And we can definitely do that. Just create one application for emergency so that folks aren't confused and clicking on the wrong things.
Okay.
So we'll use what you've seen, what we've circulated to you, and pull all of that out into just an emergency application. And that will be what will open after the board approval. If you want us to bring an innovation application back in April along with the rubric or the criteria before we open it, we're happy to kind of edit that and do that as well.
I think that would be great if they're on different timelines.
Okay.
And especially by the fact we're rolling out innovation, we may actually be done with emergency dollars.
Yeah. Adrian, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I wanted to thank you for allowing me to repeat what I heard. And then for you to say that that's not what I heard. I wanted to just clarify that. So what I heard was not what you intended. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to be able to the space to do that, to repeat what I thought I heard. Well, what I heard, and to really know what was the intent behind it. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, of course. I feel terrible today. I'm misreading the agenda. I'm calling for agenda items that we're not even on. I would not be surprised if I said something that was completely just, I think I've said 15 times in this meeting. I'm not sure how I want to say this. So I apologize to the group for not being the best chair today.
No.
I'm not at my best. But I do think that we want to grapple with those conversations. I think we want to grapple with, some of these funding requirements are relatively intense, and things like loan programs especially. So I think that we want to talk about not only how this group funds existing organizations in the way they exist in this moment, but also how we cultivate new organizations to be able to manage funds that often have some onerous requirements. And then also sort of in the third prong of, many existing organizations in this next year are going to get hit with a lot of unfortunate surprises. So how do we respond to capacity? Are there ways for us to finance in unique formats? Are there ways to have flexibility even beyond what we've talked about in demo dollars? And, we also have to wait for the URA board to tell us that they're okay with what we're planning. And I think that might hold us back at times from doing things that could be more creative or more impactful. So, I got an email today about 10 consulting firms that were fired from HUD today. And those consulting firms are firms that we rely on for a lot of good data and information and technical assistance. And that's a tragedy, but our partners are getting hit with even worse than that. So how do nonprofits, Catapult came up today, Action Housing obviously is a nonprofit. How do we respond to what's about to happen to us? I don't know yet. If anybody here knows how we respond, if you've got a good idea about that, let's talk about it next meeting.
Yeah.
People are going to get hit, and our demo dollar contribution is going to be a tiny drop in the bucket. I hope it can save things that are critical. But we do have organizations that are going to be really struggling in ways that I don't even think we can fathom at this moment. So, CHS, the city owed us $4 million at one point when I was the executive. Organizations can't survive $4 million of money that they don't have. And organizations can't survive $4,000 that they don't have. So let's put that on next month's agenda.
Yeah, that's great. but I think the process that we went through today and that we've been going through, I think this is important because I think we can set the standard because we have to be creative. We have to do things a little differently in order to meet the need, but also being responsive. So I tip my hat off to you, Adrian, and just your leadership because you were pushing us last year to really solidify demonstration dollars. And so this is, I think that's a testament to your leadership as well. So thank you for pushing us, honestly, because I think that this could be a model for other entities, other government entities as well. Like it can work. And we can't do this work by ourselves. If you look at everyone who's on the HOF board, we're all collaborating together. And we have to, and we're doing more of that. So yeah. I'm gonna mute for good now, I promise.
No muting.
I don't want you to.
Staff are not allowed to mute in these meetings. We've got to be engaged. All right, well, thank you, everyone. So demonstration dollars, I feel super great about this. I'm very excited. Also, we have 2 new board members today, which is amazing. So that's a great segue into Eric. Tell us about the state of the HOF.
Absolutely. Yep. I'll wrap it up classic style. So here is the State of HOF programmatic expenditures. This is from February 2025. You can see we had good spending from the for sale development program, the down payment closing cost assistance, legal assistance, and homeowner assistance. It is good to see the legal assistance back on that. Expenditure going out and just keep in mind that there are also, other HOF related monies going out that, not from the HOF funding source, but, different housing bonds and things of that nature. So the housing department here at the URA is doing more work than just what you see on the screen. And then this is our 2025 expenditures. You can see despite no expenditure from HOF this month on rental gap, it's still our the most expenditures that we've had comes from the rental gap, which is what we usually see. That's probably the program we put the most HOF dollars towards. Legal assistance, homeowner assistance, for sale development, down payment are all there. We'll soon, when the next funding round hits, we'll start seeing HSP come back as well. And I believe we have some small landlord fund program projects in the pipeline. So we can also expect to see that soon. And then just an overview of the allocations, expenditures, commitments, balance. Please advise your board members. Let me know if you have any questions about any of these numbers. Same for the previous 2 slides.
Last slide is very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, sorry, it's a little small. I'm afraid about next year when I have to add a new column to this chart.
Yeah, you definitely have to look at it on multiple screens.
Yeah.
I think that next year or even now you can say all previous years. Like we don't no longer need to know the individual allocation amounts for 18, 19, 20,
And just,
to me, what I'm interested on here and I find valuable is the commitments that have been made as compared to what we've budgeted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can collapse it so it's just the total allocation and then expenditures, commitments, and balance. I agree with you. If the rest of the advisor board does as well, I think that makes sense.
Wait, actually, now that I'm looking at this, oh yeah, you guys got your hands full. This is
So I like it. I mean, but like Ellie said, you could do 2018 through 2020. That could just be one column.
Sure.
And then so then we could see 20 or up to 21, whatever.
Or,
but
whatever year you actually spent all the dollars from. I'm sure several, hopefully, we're only spending out of 24 now or whatever it is.
Ellie, oh, you two are the only ones looking. We're all, the rest of us are turning. The rest of us are turning around and look behind us because I don't know how they can see it. We're all.
So expenditures. So let me see if I understand this. Just going with the RGP program. Total allocation, 26 million. Less 16 million in expenditures, less 17 million in commitments equals the balance of 3 million.
Yep, that's the math.
Eric, how does the February 2025 numbers compare to the February 2024 numbers? Is there like a difference in spending need or we can also wait for the
Sorry, I'm not
next
sure
one.
what the 2024 numbers are offhand. I would say most likely because sorry, I don't know exactly. This is typically what it would look like. Like for instance, no HSP spending. That was probably the same last year. They generally run out of funding, and we're waiting for that next allocation. I guess this was a little abnormal because there was no RGP, rental gap program spending this month, which from the HOF at least, which is a little rare. We generally see that as one of the programs that, or the program that we have the most expenditure for. But I wouldn't say anything else was too atypical about it, just from my eye.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Other questions and comments about the expenditures? I know that the advisory has wanted to, continue to revisit small landlord. It is a small pool of what we're doing. If you look overall, it has expended quite a bit. So I know that folks have wondered about that particular funding pot. I have a suspicion that we're going to see more requests for that just with the current climate. There have been notifications. I'm not sure if folks are aware. The County Housing Authority put out notifications to all of its providers that there would be no rental increases and there would be no new contracts. Everything's on hold.
Wow.
So we may be seeing some drastically changing landscape as we come into the spring. Lots for us to be thinking about, looking toward. Hopefully everyone can be bringing back those trends in your sphere of influence so that we can start to talk about how we can, impact them positively if possible. So please be ready to talk about things that are, tough and difficult as we're going into the rest of the year. I would encourage everybody again to bring a friend with you to the next HOF. We need to get our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world, and we're not going to be able to do that unless we can see 360. So please bring all those good ideas and concerns to next month's meeting. And if you need something put on the agenda, please let us know. We can certainly carve out time. We'll continue our hybrid meetings. And did Megan ever join us?
No, I do not see Megan.
Would anyone else be, I can't see who's actually in the room at the URA. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment before we close?
There is not.
So it's just us there.
It sure is.
Okay. Well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks, Lena. Would you
Welcome.
need a second for the motion?
A second.
Everybody wants to second. All right, well, we'll see everybody on April Fool's Day. We will try our absolute best not to do anything foolish in that meeting. Let us know if there are items that you would like for the agenda. Please invite folks for public comment. We have not had a robust public comment in a while. So if there are folks and things that we need to be talking about, please make sure that we can facilitate them coming. If transportation is an issue, please let us know and we'll do our best to resolve that. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned for February. It's March.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.